All right, welcome to my stream. This is one of the first times I'm doing it, so I'm a bit rookie at this. I'm gonna try to code some open source today. I thought I'd stream it just to, well, for anyone interested, but mostly for myself to sort of force myself to think in a way that I have to sort of explain what I'm doing. So when I'm coding, I'm gonna try to explain the reasoning for what I'm doing, and that hopefully it's going to also help me get it done in a better way. And if anyone is interested, that's just a bonus. So if you're in the chat, just say hi or something. That would be awesome, just to let me know. I'm going to try to interact, but to be honest, I doubt anyone is going to watch one of these first streams. All right. So what I'm going to do today, let me open. I have this library called JSON Schema Merge All. And it's a library that merges like JSON schemas with in the way that I'm going to show you here. So yeah, so just checking the stream. So I'm gonna, if you have a JSON schema like this, this is the base schema, and then you have this all of keyword, and usually you use that to sort of combine schemas, and it's easier to combine two different schemas instead of just just having everything in one of them. So this helps with simplification of the schema. So it's like this up here could then be translated into this down here without losing any validation according to either of these two here. So this one is 5 min length and this is 10 min length. And well, if you combine this, this isn't really necessary anymore because it's superseded by this one that says it has to be longer than 10. So we end up with 10 down here instead. Right, so the last time I did something like proper on this was almost 3 years ago, which is, well, when I did most of this, it was 3 years ago. And the JSON schema standard was at that time, let's see, it was at that time at draft 6. So since then, it's come out two different drafts, the draft 07 and 2019-09. And that means there's some new keywords here that I'm not supporting and I should support. And also I should, to be honest, mention clearly here what I'm supporting. It's not that big of a problem for this library because you can, in the options object, you can send in custom resolvers. So if you want to, you could fill out the blanks that there's missing from this library, that are missing, and you could write it yourself. So that's so maybe that's why I haven't got much people complaining about that, because maybe they done it themselves. However, there is the biggest problem now is the lack of support for the conditional operators or conditional keywords. And the reason you can't solve this with a custom resolver because resolvers are just support one keyword, and the if then else keywords they have to be understood in context of each other. So if a schema passes the schema in the if, then the then keyword is applied. If not, the else keyword is applied. So a resolver, if you just wrote a resolver for this, you would end up with something like all the ifs together and all the thens together and then all the else together, which is not what you want. In addition to that, since these are well, how do I say it? So here, was so the if then and else must not interact with each other across subschema boundaries. So if an if in one branch of an all so as I'm going to show you later in the code, if an all if I had if in this part of the schema and then if in this part of the schema, this other one, they're not, you can't just merge them together and hope for success. So what I have to do is to keep them separate if they're separate. However, there are scenarios where I can do some optimization here if I go to my editor. So for instance, I have already started with some tests here, and I'm testing that, for instance, if the base schema, which is, well, you don't see it here, but it's this outer object, and this outer object has an all-of, which this one has if then else. I'm expecting it to move the if then else to the base schema if there's only one, or rather, the first one that is to be moved. The first one encountered is to be moved to base schema. So if the base schema itself does have an if then else, I should do nothing about that. But if not, this is correct. So let me just see here if I'm actually, let's see, panel right. Let's see if I can do the panel to the right. I don't know how that looks on the stream. I think I can do it. If I just maybe, is it too bad to zoom out? Looks a little bit small. Yeah, I think it's fine. Depends if you're watching this on an iPad or something, or a phone, or on your computer. I think I'm gonna keep the schema to the bottom. Panel to bottom. So here I have the test running. Let me remove these console logs. So if I save this, I'm probably gonna get, oh, I wasn't scrolling. So console log mergers. Okay, I don't need this. This is just for debugging right now. So I'm already passing these two tests up here. So the one that it moves it to the base schema if there's nothing there, and it does not move it if there's already something there. So if I have something on the base schema here, I'm not going to move this. So it's basically only going to stay as it is with now then the all of here. So that's pretty much the base functionality. So I already done some of this, so sorry for not including you on that. But if I now write some tests, let me see. I need to. So I still need to check that, for instance, other keywords are moved to the base schema if they're not part of the if then else. So let me see, is this if then else? So if I say moves the normal or affected keywords to to the base. So schema. Okay, so if I have something like this and I I'm doing this inside another test. That's not good. So if I already have something here like properties name, and that is type string, and it's min length 3, and then I also have this same thing here in this schema, in this sub. And if I have that, and maybe this is 5, like I talked about earlier, then I should end up with something. It should remove it from here, because I can remove everything, and move it up to here, and it should be 5 min length. So let's just see that this fails, and if I failed because I haven't defined it yet, so what it should end up with is the property, so 5. Let's see if this works. I think it might actually do work, so there's that. So I'm just assuring that I'm not messing up anything else that I'm normally doing when the if then else is present, and that's good. So let's go to the browser again, just review the spec here. So this keywords value must be a valid JSON schema. That's okay. The validation outcome has no direct effect on the overall validation result. It controls which of the then or else that are evaluated. So if I let me see, if since I'm not doing the actual validation here, it is not, I don't have to worry about these things. I just need to make sure that the merge schema doesn't do anything more or different from the original separated schema. So I thought a little bit about how, if I could do something like, if these are the same, the ifs, could I then, sorry, I'm in the editor now. If the ifs are the same, could I then combine the then and the else? I don't think so, because I'm not sure. Because if they are identical, the if and the both ifs, which it isn't here, if it is identical, I could I then combine the then, for instance? I'm not sure, and I'm not sure it's a good idea either, because I think the validation tools here is gonna say something about the pathing of these, so I'm not sure. I don't think that's something I need to do anyway. I could do it in a future update, but I think I'm gonna leave that for now. So basically all I want to do is don't touch any of these, but remove things that are to be merged, like I did here. Also move, as the first test says, move it to the base schema if the base one doesn't have an if then else. So this is not part of my library, but I'm a bit curious, because let's say this one has one of the additional properties false, and this one has additional properties. Well, if this one has properties like this, and then this one has title, for instance, this one is gonna I don't think this is not a workable combination, so I'm a bit unsure how the specification handles that. So I guess you never want additional properties here. because, well, then I have to make sure that all of these properties are also present in the base one. I mean, that's fine, but for the reasons for my library is more that you can split out schemas and you can combine them. So I might have an option to ignore this. Maybe not. But there's some things to think about here. So I'm gonna think about that. But for now, I want to just implement the simplest version of this. So let's go back to the browser and see if there's anything that I'm missing, and and then make some test cases for that. Instances that fail to validate must also be validated in the else. So nothing of this. Although this new annotations things, which wasn't there in the draft 6 of the spec, is mentioning how annotations are collected. So I'm curious how that affects my library, because what I'm doing is moving things from the all of keyword into the base schema, which I claimed that doesn't affect the validation thing, and it doesn't. But it might affect something like this annotation thing, which is basically, I think, as far as I understand it, you get like a path to the properties, to the keywords, etc., etc. But I mean, my library isn't something that you use like runtime. I guess it's more like if you want to keep your schema separate and then you just want to simplify them with my library. So I don't think that is a big problem for my library. I don't think I need to think about that as of now. Okay, so the then keyword must be a valid JSON schema when if is present, then validation succeeds. This keyword has no effect when if is absent, or when the instance failed to validate against its subschema. Implementations must not evaluate the instance against this keyword for either validation or annotation purposes or annotation collection purposes in such cases. So that means if there's no if, this keyword is it should be ignored. And honestly, I think you shouldn't have that. So I might introduce an option to clean up those things, although probably not. That is a little bit that's a little bit different again for my it's a little bit different scope for my library here. I think I'm seeing in the stream I'm pretty dark, my camera. Let's see if we can fix that. I think it's because my backlighting and I get sun in here in the daytime. So let's see if I can quickly fix that. Actually, it's a little bit better now. Let's see, image settings. Yes, that's probably fine for now. Okay. So the question is if I even need anything more of this. I think I should, though. I'm not sure how I should treat it if one of the keywords are different. Sorry, if they're missing. If they are missing, I'm going to write some tests just in case, because you never know if your code behaves as you want it to, unless you write some tests for it. So let's see if here. So this is the merger here. So basically all I'm doing is I'm taking all of the possible values. These are collected across all of the schemas that are combined using all of, and then they are they're and they're given to this function here. And what I'm doing is I'm finding everyone that actually has the if keyword. So actually here it seems that I'm actually ignoring the one that doesn't have the if keyword, which could be the one way I want to do it or not. So, and then I do what I always get the first one. And then I create a new schema that returns what I'm expecting in a test here. So let's move this comment up here, like this. And then I'm gonna write some more tests. Let's see. So it's what it should do. It should I think it should just leave these things alone completely. I don't think I should even remove the if, then, and else. So, okay, it should not move to base schema if only if keyword is not present. So let's do this first test up here. It's basically the same, just want to modify some of the data. So let's say I do have an if here. No, let's do I have an else here and not and nothing else. Let me even do something like this. Just these are valid JSON schema as well. So let's say I have the else here, but I don't have the if. I still don't want it to be this way. What I want it to be is keep it as is, this outer one, and then the inner one also keep it as is. I don't want to mess with how the user compose these schemas. I might have options to do something cleaning up of these things, but I do feel that that's a different library that should do that. So this is what I expect. Let's see if that actually works the way it says. It doesn't. So it actually does move it, and it actually overwrites the else. That's because here I'm getting all the schemas that have if only. So I should have so what I should do is something like I should check if all of these schemas have if then else, and it does, which I have that somewhere. The properties conditional related. So these are the keywords that are conditional and they're related conditionally. So what I should do is check if the conditional related is if it just has any of these. So if I do some of these here and keyword, and then I can check that if the schema has this keyword here, then I want to get all of them. That all with if is not the best word here. All if with the conditional. All of them that actually has one of the three conditional, because well basically I'm always gonna get, as far as I remember here, this has been a while, when I'm getting all of the values from the different yeah, down here I'm checking if some of these keys. Well, I don't remember exactly, but I think I'm doing is extracting all the schemas that if any of the schemas have any of these three, then I'm extracting all of the schemas. But I might end up with schemas that either don't have all of the three, or I'm ending up with something that has none of the three, which can happen. I'm going to test for that as well, I guess. So if I save this now, let me go back here. It actually works. So let me just, if keyword only if keyword only some keywords are present. So I'm gonna test here now all the different combinations just to make sure I'm not doing something stupid. So result 1, result 2. So if I do then instead here then, I'm gonna get the same thing almost down here, and gonna try it again with the result 3. So now if is present. I'm gonna also get if here. I'm a little bit unsure if this last one is actually gonna work. It is working. Okay. Good. I'm also going to add some tests for different schema values. I already tested it now with false and empty object, but I also want to test it with maybe undefined. Works with undefined value. So if I do test this now, let's see, just do something like, this doesn't really make sense that much, because in JSON there is nothing that is undefined. Either it's null, or it's true or false or empty object, but it's never undefined. If you parse it, I mean, if you parse it as from JSON text. But this is merging not really JSON, it's merging JavaScript objects. And if you then have undefined for some reason, how does it behave? So I think actually if it now doesn't have any of these keywords set, else, if, then else, I actually want it to move then. Now it should move these, because it's the same as if not present. It's not the same. Let's go to the browser again. I actually think that it is present, must be a valid. And what is a valid JSON schema? Let's see. Is it described up here? This is interesting because it does say that it can be any of JSON value, but undefined is not a JSON value. So I'm curious how I should deal with that. Let me check my other tests and see if what is actually do I do do I do undefined somewhere? Because there's a different JavaScript on an object if the value is present or not, or if it's present and undefined, or if it's just not there. The value is still the same. It's undefined, but the key is there, which is quite different. So I actually haven't tested it that much. And all undefined. Additional items. I think it is that if it's undefined, Actually, I need to go down to the then section again, because I think the if might have a different and special meaning of when it's not there. Must not interact. Sorry, back to the browser. Must not interact with each other. There is no default behavior for if then else when they are not present. So in particular, they must not be treated as if present with an empty schema. Okay. So I can say if is there, but it's undefined. So basically it's not there with a valid JSON value. So it's there, but it's not with a valid JSON value. I think then it should not be treated as if. Normally, if it's not there, it's the same as true. So true and undefined is usually the same. But it says here it must not be treated as an empty schema, i.e. true or empty object or undefined. And when if is not present, both then and else must be entirely ignored. But again, this is JSON schema validation, and in my library, just the merging all the things. So I think I can go back to my code here, and I think actually if it's like this, it's the same as if it's not there. And if it's not there, I think it should be the same as, well, not there. And then it should move the code from here up to here. So let's see if that actually works. As if not there, not the same as empty schema. Because if it was there, it would always be true, and then would always apply, which is a bad idea, I guess. That's why they did change that. Okay, so that's pretty good. I have changed that. Items, this is not the right file. So don't I have, could not find a coverage file. This is a different computer. I had set it up so I could watch the coverage in real time. Let me see if that's actually happening. It's creating the lcove file. I don't think I need text. Well, it's nice, I guess. No, it's not. I don't want it. I just want the lcove tests. I'm gonna restart this then, and then if I go to settings here, coverage gutters, test unit coverage. This is not good. Still could not find a coverage file. Let me just check on disk if this is here. You can see my editor now or my file explorer. Let's see if it actually created it today, 1609. That's now good. So it is being created, but it's not being picked up here. So why is that? So coverage gutters. Didn't I save this? Okay, coverage. Name lcove, that's correct. I think I need to open the settings. Manual coverage file paths. Could not find the coverage file. Okay, so what am I doing wrong? I always find this kind of tricky, this extension. It's not explicit how it works. Okay, covered gutters, coverage based here, modified in user. Okay, can I delete this? There it is. Okay, good. So now I can see that I'm actually testing everything here except for empty. Well, if it is not empty, then I'm testing it. So actually, it removes empty all of. So empty all of. So what I want to test here is similar to something like this. I can copy that. So let's say this is actually here, and this one does not have an if then else, but it has, for let's say, properties, just to make sure it's being copied, name, type, string. Okay, is that correct? Why is it not? It's okay. So now I should end up with this one up here, the all of being removed, and all in the rest of it, it's the same. So why is it not working? Oh, I didn't save it after I copied it. So actually it moves this, and then this schema is empty, so it just removes it, and I shouldn't add it here. However, I think there's scenarios here where I'm not sure if I'm let me think. So there are some scenarios in which I have this report. There's this function that I sometimes pass here, an unresolved schemas. This is this is if I have if I'm this is if a normal resolver, which is just any independent validation keyword. If this is actually it has some unresolved, I can then report that, and this is just going to be added to the all of. So I'm curious if I have the combination of something like this and then something like this, how does that work? So first I guess I need to find one of them that are actually have that scenario where it's reporting unresolved. So I'm not sure any of these actually do that. If that means it needs to have 5 arguments. These all have 3. This one might have 4. 1. So I do have these resolvers up here. Let me see, get schemas, get keys, merge. I probably want to do a cleanup of my library as well. First of all, I want to use const and let where it's where it makes sense. Here I have call group resolver. I see here that the group resolver doesn't call it with that function, so there's no way for some of the resolvers to report any unresolved schemas. However, how can I find any of these that have... I'm gonna... Let me see. Let me see. So I'm not sure this is actually. Let's turn on. Let's disable only running this test, and I'm gonna run all my tests and see if actually this is getting code coverage. Is this being run at all? Whoa, one failing. Strict mode, pattern, matches, pattern, long. Okay, but does it? It does not call this. So it seems I have some code here that is dead. I don't actually use it. So the question is, should I just remove it or should I support it? But then I need probably to add a lot of more tests to this. I'm tempted to remove it, but maybe this one test is the one that's calling it. I doubt it highly, but let's see. Strict mode, property, foo long, matches, pattern, use, allow, matching production. Allow. Use allow. Not allow. I mean, seriously. Check strict mode. It's in the AJV. So it's not allow matching properties. I think this is because pattern it's actually present. It is actually present, the pattern properties. I don't need my headset, I realize. So the pattern properties is a keyword that is still supported, it seems. However, I think the dependent schemas. Dependencies. This is dependencies. Exactly, the dependencies. So this actually renamed, it seems, only renamed. So it's only renamed. I can probably fix that. So with pattern properties present. Not with when pattern. Okay, so it's this test here. Merge it with properties if matching property name. Okay, what does that mean? So I'm merging this, I'm merging it with the properties if, So if I have, is that correct? So I'm merging these two up here. And actually, so I'm doing, if the pattern properties matches, I'm saying that it also applies to name then, because it applies to all that matches this. And if one of the known ones matches, then it should update that. So it's saying for this one, this matches name. So I'm saying that name should actually now have min length of 8, which it doesn't. Well, here it has min length of 8. Question is, shouldn't the name be the one that... I'm not sure about this test, but I have to come back to that. I haven't heard anyone complain about it. I should probably revisit it. So, but I do not get what error I'm getting. Foo long matches pattern long. Use allow matching properties. I'm gonna check out in the browser AJV, this one, and I'm gonna search for allow. Where's the options? Options. Allow matching properties. Pass through to allow overlap between properties and pattern properties. Okay. So maybe they introduced in the specification not to allow these to overlap in any way. That could be. I can see how that can be a problem for a source for bugs. So see strict mode. I'm gonna see if pattern properties. Okay. The value of pattern properties must be an object. So that is true, that I have in my test. Each property name should be a valid regular expression according to this dialect, which is, I guess, the JavaScript dialect. Each property value of this object property value. Okay, so the property value which I had, which was, for instance, the name one with the asterisk at the end and the hat at the beginning. So that's correct. Validation succeeds if for each instance name that matches any regular expressions that appear as property name. Blah 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 blah. That seems fine. The next paragraph. So I don't see that this is something dictated by the new draft. And if it isn't, then I'm curious why they have allow matching properties. Why can't I have that in strict mode? Okay, so the expectation of users, according to some users, it seems, is that pattern properties only apply to properties not already defining properties keyword. But JSON schema specification 932 defines these two keywords as independent. So I don't see how this is valid that users think that they only apply. Why shouldn't they apply? If you want to apply some general rule to your validation properties, to your properties that are already there, but in addition you want to apply it to others that match, then so okay. So to some properties, two scripts can be applied exactly. That's how I expect it to be. One defining properties and another defining pattern properties. By default, AGV is fail schema compilation if a pattern matches a property in the same schema. in addition to allowing the properties by option strict false, there is an option allow matching properties. So okay, I'm curious about this section here. 932 keywords applying description. So I'm checking all the references of pattern properties. Unevaluated, this is a new one. So validation, I'm skipping a bit around now, but I think I need to understand this in context of each other. So it seems I was here. Validation with unevaluated properties applies only to the child values of instance names that do not appear in properties, which is the explicitly defined ones, pattern properties, additional properties, or unevaluated properties, which is this, I don't get it, results that apply to the instance location being validated. Shit. For all such properties, validation succeeds I don't understand. Isn't this what additional properties is supposed to? I don't understand. Unevaluated properties. Isn't that what additional properties is? So everything that is not catched by properties or pattern properties. I don't get it. So this means that properties, pattern properties. Oh. This means that properties, pattern properties, additional properties, and all in-place applicators. What's an in-place applicators? Is this from the new extension keywords? Is this just to do with annotation, which I still don't understand properly, but if it is, then maybe I don't need to worry about it. However, I should probably have a default resolver for this. I do not understand this, honestly. So property names, I think I have property names. Yep. So property names. This keyword validates if every property name. So will always be a string, of course. So because if additional properties is false or it is so this is testing of the name itself, not the value for the property name. Okay. But I seem to have covered that. So okay, so but let's go back to the editor. I think this is just because I'm using a new AGV, and I am using this to validate. Not sure what I'm validating it for. Okay, so what's the test? Merges with. Okay, it's this one. So I'm testing, and then I'm testing. Okay, so I'm testing. Okay, so here I'm testing actually that, which is important. I'm testing that my original schema and the new one is validating the exactly same thing, which is good. I need to keep that. However, so it only seems that I need to change this one to let's see, to allow pattern, no, allow matching properties. I think this is weird. I don't like it when specifications, they're following a standard and then they're saying, well, I don't think it should be this way because I don't know. I don't like it. Okay, so how do I create a new, where do I supply the options? Is that at the beginning? I think it's at the beginning. So for this to not fail, I guess I need to strict, there's also some warnings. Object. Okay, so it's a lot of noise now. Okay, let's fix the failure first. So this is options, and I should have allow matching true. So now I think I shouldn't get a failure now. Good. But I also have some issues here. I kind of want to commit this thing before the other one. Let's see. Oh, sorry, I'm back in the editor now. So I fixed the test. It's now not failing because of this one. So this is my expectation. It doesn't affect the merging itself. It just affects when I'm testing these things against each other. But I should probably get rid of this stuff here. So this is, which is this properties, same file. This all except matching pattern prop. It's still 3 properties per properties if both false. So it's what? Okay, let's take the first. Oh, it's actually 3 places. Let's take the first. So I'm doing this, and I don't get any errors here. 145. Is this getting errors? No? Okay. So I don't understand. Which one? Which one was it? Missing type object. Actually, I think I should just turn off strict mode. I'm not testing the validation. I'm just testing that it gets the same with the same parameters. It might, of course, allow for some problems to occur, but I'm not sure about that. What's this? Oh, it's my mouse pointer. Okay, so just saying that, basically just saying that if I have pattern properties and properties, merges with properties if matching property name. So I should always have type object. I'm not sure I want to add this. Okay. Property. Okay, so here. Good. This allows all except matching properties if one false. So it's this one. I want to get rid of the warnings, so I'm just going to do type object. So it's this one, and it should also, I mean, if it has properties, it's an object, it always is. So I'm just going to add that. Add this one, and in the final, add this one. So now we shouldn't get this one as well. If both false, both true, both false, both. So it's now, it seems only one missing. If both false. So it's additional properties. Describe additional properties. Object. So did I save it? Yeah. So okay, no warnings now. I should probably yeah, good. So I have this one here. I'm gonna add open repository, code, merge all of. Okay. So I want to clean up here a little bit. This is not good. I'm gonna fix something here. Hang on. Same position of the camera. This one should fill all the screen. Good. It's good enough. I'm going to tune it later. So I first want to fix this file. I think all of these yeah. So I'm going to do it like this. Amend it, and then I'm going to reset it. Keep working directory. I'll show as staged. Okay, so now I can, well, I'm going to unstage all, and then I'm going to stage this one, and I'm going to stage this index. No, I'm not going to do anything here because this is for the new if then else. But here I'm going to do the update test coverage, which is more or less like the develop one, which is actually a good point. I'm going to rename this to develop with coverage on. So I do prefer the Mocha one with the watch. The problem is I don't get live code coverage. So it's really fast and you get feedback, but you don't get the code coverage. Which is, I wish there was a way to use NYC with Mocha, in the watch state, so I could get the immediate report on the test coverage. Okay. So I'm adding the updated versions, package log updated, readme. I did some minor change here. Okay, so I'm gonna call this update. Update dependencies. And then I have, I can stage this, and then I have work in progress for if then else. I'm gonna push this. What? I don't have. Wait a minute. Okay, I'm gonna create a branch here. Don't I have? Okay. Local if. I'm gonna check out this one, and I'm gonna reset this one to local if. Reset it hard. Yep. And then I'm pushing support if then else. Sorry, I'm in the wrong place, but now I'm back, so it's fine. If I have now, I can do push force. I thought I had. So this is It's funny, I'm opening Nano inside Visual Studio Code, which is interesting. I'm confused. Why don't I get, sorry, in my browser, why don't I get SSL here? Why only GitHub command line? That's weird. Really weird. Am I using the same here? If I do edit, so if I go to the other repository, cd compare git config editor. So here I actually have it like this. Let me copy this. Yeah. So if I then go back, cd JSON Schema merge git config e. So so this is correct. I'm going to do F3. Oops. What? I thought. Is this not Nano? It's Nano. Exit. Save. Yes. Okay. So if I'm pulling, okay. It's a bit confusing. Okay. So go back here and I'm just gonna abort merge. I don't want to pull. I have what I want here. I want to force push it. This should go away. Good. Okay. Okay. So I'm going back to the editor and I'm gonna develop coverage. So I still have some ESLint here, but I'm probably going to use it soon, so I'm going to leave it be. Oh my god. All right. Oops. Booger alert. Okay. So is there anything else I need to do? See if I go to the browser again. So this 9.2 section is for all the applying conditionally. So dependent schemas, I think I have that. That's the dependencies one. So this opens an interesting question, because should I now support all of the old keywords in my updated merger? Should I package them somehow? It seems that for AGV, whatever it's called, does have, well, let's go back to docs here. It seems that they have formats. So the formats here, you can add a format, but the formats that are in the specification, unknown formats, yeah, so I'm not sure exactly how it was, but there's one that's called here formats. It seems that it has no formats included, so it's put it in a separate repository, so it can then, I guess, you can plug and play your formats independently from the actual library. So the question is, should I have a resolver library maybe, and should if that would that help me support still draft 6, draft 7, draft 2019? How do I do that? I'm not sure how I would do that. Because if I now remove the support for, let's go to the code again here. If I do dependencies here, if I remove these dependencies, if I remove that, how? It's not ideal. It's not ideal at all. When I created this, I created for the latest version, so in my mind there was only one version, and I'm not sure how to deal with the moving target here. It's a bit frustrating. So it seems for dependencies here that is only renamed, it seems to me. And if it is, it's quite easy to support both the old and new, because it's the exact same logic, just renaming. Dependencies, definitions. That's curious. Anyway, I want to check what. So this is never called. This is never called at all. That's curious to see. Probably should remove it, but I should think about how to deal with that, and how can I say that something isn't resolved and it's just now remaining in the all of the schema. So this is curious. I'm still here not testing with empty schemas here. I'm never testing when it's actually empty. So the question is it always being removed if it's empty? I'm going to check that. So if I already have, this one. So if I go back here, I can run only these tests. And if these tests are So this is empty, but it is the first, so, but this is also empty. Removes empty all of. Removes empty all of. So why isn't it, I'm curious about this. Why is, it's probably not a bug or a problem, but I'm curious, why doesn't it work like I expect it now to cover, So it's not touching this at all. Is that because it has only, I'm removing them up here, the ones that doesn't have any one of them. So I don't think I need this at all, actually. So since I already removed the ones that are, okay. I'm also curious if I could do some changes to this. So let's first check that all tests are good. They are good. Let's remove the log here just to clean up the output. Okay, good. So I want to do, I think I can just do this and shorten it a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to say all of if all of. This doesn't really change much, does it? Sort of. It is the same. I could also do something like this. I could do all of equals empty object, and then I get the rest, and then I do rest, and then I have here all of. It's cleaner, I guess. It's cleaner down here, but it's more dirty up here. I'm not sure what I prefer. This could also be written as, is that even more simple to read? Not sure. Okay. Wait a minute. So the question is, do I prefer this? Or do I prefer, which one do I prefer? Let me go back to the Sublime Merge. I have now this code here. So, well, first of all, it's not comparing this because this line is not needed anyway. So since it's not needed, it's only this, and I'm not saving any lines here. Really? But the thing is, this actually doesn't create. No, it does. It does create an all of anyway. I think I'm gonna keep it as it was. I'm gonna go back to the code. But I don't need this one, and so this is probably more readable for most people with the, or is it just readable for boomers that isn't used to the spread operator, isn't used to deconstruction? I don't know, but if you're not from in the JavaScript community, if you're not used to JavaScript, I'm pretty sure this is much more readable to you. So Mm-hmm. So this is actually first schema. So the first is used as the base here. Yeah, so I think the last test I had, what I wanted to test was if this if I have some other resolver that didn't manage to merge its schemas, sub-schemas, then how does this conflict with this one? And it seems that I'm not sure how that will work. So the question is, do we have any other resolver that is actually handling this in this way? And I did have it on the pattern properties because I thought that you couldn't do a union of the regular expressions, but it turns out you could. So I think I removed it from there because of that reason. So let's see if I can find. I want to clean up this library anyway to make it a lot more readable with function names that describes the logic of whatever I'm doing. So I'm going to write a test that says something like it works with resolver that does not manage to resolve its schemas. So probably need a test for that first, that the custom resolver I probably should have something for that. But I'm just gonna test that it actually works here as expected. And if it doesn't, I need to do something else. So just for a normal schema here, if I have then, this is options object, resolvers, and I do the foo resolver. So if I have the foo keyword, well, let's do the foo resolver. Let's go to the browser and check my merge all of. I'm going to this is what I need. So I'm creating a custom resolver here, and Let's say I have the foo keyword. And the foo, it has some values, which is, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, all of 4, 5, 6, and this is uncompatible. This doesn't make a meaning, so this resolver just says what's going on. Report unresolved. So it's reporting that I can't do anything with this. So what I did in the if resolver, what I did was I did the merging myself. I'm not sure that's a good idea, because if there's multiple ones that needs to be merged, it's going to mess up the merging, I think. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say this one is just reporting the unresolved, and it's just going to report everyone. It doesn't have anyone. All of these values are unresolvable, and I'm going to report that. So what I'm expecting this to look like is actually exactly the same as the input. Let's see if that works. It doesn't. So what it actually gave me was an array of them being merged together. So now I actually did end up here. Called with oh, sorry, I'm back in the editor. But actually, I need to go back to the browser. I need to look at the history here. So for pattern, add support for merging patterns. This is where I probably stopped using the unresolved one. Report exactly. Before I was reporting the unresolved. Let's see if this makes more sense. I'm not sure this makes more sense. Let's see. So pass. What happens now? Okay, this is actual, so it's removed. Wait. It is, what it did do was to add both to the all of. But the question is, shouldn't one of them be moved to the base schema? Or is it cleaner to have them all like this? That's what I did with the if one. I did move it to the base schema, and I'm not sure that is a good idea or not. But apparently this one is not moving it, so that tells something. I could change it to move one of them, the first one of them. It's actually now moving like this, so that takes the first one and the second one. So the key it does this. It says for foo, here's actually, it's not regex, but it's the value. Val, I should just do like this. So this is fine, I guess. But the question is, how does this work if I now introduce if then else? So let's see. Let's see what happens, and let's see if we can. I don't need else, I guess. I can throw it in there. So if I have this, what's actually going to happen? And okay, let me first think what I think is going to happen. So I think we're going to end up with now a bit of a monster like this, and this. Let's see. I don't think that is what we're going to end up with. Okay. So I'm expecting it to the 2, 3, 4 here, but it doesn't. It isn't there. I don't like this. That seems something like this I'm getting, which is weird. It seems to override it, right? That's what it's doing, and that's not good. So I think it should move it. No, it shouldn't. Props, merge. Merge schemas, options, report, and resolve. So what if I now in just calling report and resolve, and just they are all unresolved. If I do that, I'm curious what I'm ending up with here. I should only do this test, by the way. So the report and resolve isn't even being provided to me. That is because I have called group resolver here. Hi. So I'm calling this function report and resolve. Okay. So I'm going to, whoops. Report unresolved is unresolved schemas. Return exactly. This is a bit bad, weird. Called with array. Parents. So it seems the group resolver isn't supporting to report undefined, which is a problem, and I need to fix that. Yeah, okay. I think I need to, and now it's been a bit rough, but I'm probably going to continue this later. Okay, thanks for now.